Hello and welcome back to the Culture Wave Media Network. We are here to discuss the first film for the Garden State Film Festival in our home state of New Jersey. We're very pleased to discuss the film Love, Danielle. I am going to be one of your reviewers and hosts for this episode. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Liz Seiko.
What's going on?
Excited to talk about this one. This was a feature film that screened in Asbury Park, which is basically in our backyard here in New Jersey. And this is a very unique and personal story. It is co-written by one of the stars of the film, Devin Sidell, along with Steven Sears, co-wrote it with her. And also the actress that plays Misty, Marianna Palka, also is the director of this film as well. And it is about this woman who has the BRCA mutation, gene mutation, which some people call the BRCA gene mutation, and dealing with the repercussions of decisions that she has to make when she gets diagnosed with the fact that she has this gene mutation. Now, I'm a man, and I didn't know much about this coming into the film, so it was a very eye-opening and educational experience for me. And I really appreciated the way that they were able to kind of walk the audience along to something that is very unfamiliar to a lot of people. I watched this film with my girlfriend, and there was a lot of answers she was giving me along the way that I didn't fully interpret or understand. For you as a woman, Liz, how did you feel about this story and what Devin had gone through, and also just the film in general, just broad thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this film, kind of going off of what you were saying, just because they're able to give backstory of the gene mutation, but then also make it like an actual interesting and in a storytelling way, rather than just a plain old documentary that people might not pick up on the nuances that go along with somebody that gets diagnosed with this. I also was very surprised by how much comedy was actually in this film, which for me makes it just so much more real, because in life, when somebody's diagnosed with any sort of disease, it's not just all melodrama and sadness and darkness. You're still a human being. You're still living a life. And so you still are having those awkward encounters, those like comedic relief moments in life that come along that people need when they are dealing with something so drastic and life-changing. So I was definitely surprised by that. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the different conversations that they were trying to portray and kind of unveil in this story. We were talking a little bit before we got on camera, and I was just mentioning that the point of this story that really stuck with me is the conversation of when somebody is diagnosed with this gene, is it fully their decision, or is it like an input that comes along with either their partner, their husband, their spouse, or is it something that they need to share with their family? Is it something that, because it's their body, that they get to take full control over and decision making, or is it beneficial to share that information with your loved ones? And so I loved that they didn't necessarily give an exact answer. They just kind of explored that conversation.
Yeah, it has a very communal approach with what the character Danielle is dealing with throughout the story. I mean, you get the perspectives from everybody that has a significant part of her life, whether it's her husband, whether it's, again, her best friend Misty, her sister played by Jamie King, who I think does a brilliant job in this movie.
Yeah.
Her father and her mother, both who are not together anymore, and their own interpretations of whether it's their ignorance or it's they just need more insight into the process of what she's dealing with. I think it's Lesley Ann Warren that plays her mother in the film, and there's a really great scene towards the end of the movie. Again, I don't want to give spoilers because everyone should go see this movie when and where it's available, but it's something in which you're getting a real kind of peeling back the curtain of how everybody deals with their own struggles and how they can internalize so much of that and kind of take on that alone, even though there are people around. Like, so much when people deal with their own tragedies or their own missteps in life or issues that kind of come up, they are told by a lot of people that they're there for them. But in this story, it's not as cut and dry as that. Even when she does eventually get the surgeries, she wants to be there for her sister constantly, and her sister like makes her aware, like, no, you can't come and take care of me even though I have cancer, which Jamie King, her character, has in the film. And it's based on what Devin had gone through in real life. So I think that her being able to balance, like you said, that humor, the insight, the education is a real testament to how they were able to kind of bring this story together.
Yeah, it's a big juggling act to be able to make it theatrical, but then also educational in a way that people are able to digest it and fully understand. Because I think a lot of people probably don't know that there are preventative surgeries that you can do. I think people fully expect it just to be you wait until you get some sort of either ovarian or breast cancer and then you deal with the aftermath. But you are able to get insight into whether it's potentially something that you might be dealing with and ways to kind of just prevent it. Which again, I haven't really seen like any films that kind of touch on this subject of the preventativeness of it. It's usually of the person is fully diagnosed with breast cancer and then we get to deal with the shock of that and the aftermath. This was a different tone because it's not completely a shock necessarily because she's seen it already with her sister and her aunt in the story. So I really appreciated that they didn't go this like devastating, oh my God, like complete shock, I guess, just because the character already knew that this might be something that she's going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like everybody has their own sort of health journey and their own ways of dealing with it. And I think, like you said, sometimes you get beaten over the head with the tragedy of these circumstances. And the reality is, regardless, whether it's fortunate reality, unfortunate reality, it's like life still has to kind of go on. And there's still people in your life that are also affected by what you're going through. And it affects you directly if you're dealing with something like this and how your relationships change with people. And I think this movie does a really good job of sort of painting the full picture for people, not being able to sort of hyper fixate on one element of the story, but again, still treating the character Danielle as an individualized character, not just somebody that has this gene mutation. She also has passions in life. She has different relationships with different people. And I liked one thing that stood out to me was the visions that she gets when she gets under surgery.
I love those. Were one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, and I don't want to go again into the specifics, but the final vision is one that like affected me a lot, and just kind of the way that you saw how things played out in flashback, and I thought that was really well done and in a really cool way to show what the internal stuff was that Danielle, the character, was dealing with, because she doesn't really put it out there for any other character to kind of, she doesn't have like a really big outburst. She's not like, this is what I'm dealing with, which is what you see a lot of times when you're dealing with films that have the heavier kind of subtext and just generalized story.
Yeah, I also think that something that kind of everybody can relate to, not just somebody that maybe is diagnosed with this, is that things just kind of pop up in our life. And as much planning as you do, sometimes things kind of take our plans for a turn. And that's something that they definitely investigate a lot in this, is how much are you able to plan ahead when you are diagnosed with something like this. But then it's also on the other hand of like, you have to make these life altering decisions. And it's like, what if I make this decision now, but in 5 years, I kind of regret this decision? And then it just goes into the psyche of making these huge life changes, and you have to do them as quick as possible because you're on a time crunch.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too how they showed the after effects of what can happen when you get these surgeries. Like it could be something as small as like the recovery time, and you can't even go for a walk.
Yeah.
Like that was something where it's like all you want to do is be able to go outside and enjoy like fresh air, but it's like you don't even have the ability to move. Like it's like when a pregnancy happens and you get a C-section, it's like it's a similar kind of thing, but this is like a much bigger recovery time. Then we get a little bit of a glimpse, we talked off camera about like how, because of the surgery, the preventative surgery she gets, that there's like quicker onset for like menopause, and like how that has a major effect on her sex life and the relationship with her husband. And those kinds of things are like the minutia that is not explored all the time in movies that handle these kinds of things. But like you said, like there's not a lot of movies that have covered things like this. I think it's a really eye-opening film for a lot of people, and it makes people feel seen that have gone through these sort of things in their life, whether it's a cancer or it's a gene mutation or it's a health scare of any kind. It's something where I think what they aim to do as a whole writing and directing team is they want to make people feel seen. And I think this movie does a really good job of that.
Yeah, I also think it's a very honest script about, I mean, clearly because it is her personal experience, about the, like, sometimes you don't know, like the whole conversation of, is this fully her decision, or does she need to bring like her husband in on this? At first, your first instinct is, well, it's her body, like fully her choice on what she wants to do. But
she
then,
says that in the film
yeah,
too.
Yeah, she says it's her body, like it's her choice. But then it's also like you are in this partnership at the end of the day, and you have made statements about having a future together with potentially children. And it's like, so do you take in his point of view? Or do you just kind of expect him to support anything that you want to do, since you're the person that actually has to go through it? And I don't think there's any clear answer on that. I think it's based on experience. And I just really appreciate that they just open up that conversation in this film. They don't necessarily give like a strict answer, which
or point of view.
Yeah, which I think is great, because sometimes for films, you don't need to be told what the answer is. You just need to have the like door opened into that conversation.
Yeah, and I think Jamie King and Devin Sidell, their chemistry,
so good,
radiates off the screen. I think it's just something where, and we had seen some other interviews with them before we started recording, and just how they went on this journey kind of together. And Jamie King even talked about how she had lost a very close friend to cancer before they started filming this, and she was so touched by Devin's script, and like they're holding hands the whole interview, and it's just like there's such an obvious care for one another that obviously exists off screen, that it plays up in the film like so much on screen, that I just really appreciated sort of that bond that they had, and it was a really good choice to bring those two together. I thought Jamie King genuinely was so great in the film.
So great. They also felt like sisters.
100%.
Like they had the moments where it was just like, oh, that is a sister tension right there, of like deep relationship that like you can't match at a certain point.
Yeah, definitely. But I really enjoyed this movie. I know you did too.
Yeah.
Really excited. Hopefully you guys can check it out. We'll have some information in the YouTube description for you guys for this, but we're really happy that we're covering the Garden State Film Festival for the first time this year. It just happened last week. We're going to have interviews for you guys soon with some filmmakers. We're going to have other reviews and discussions on our channel for the film festival. We love doing, we love the festival scene. We're totally loves of cinema in general. And we have done other festivals in New Jersey. We've done Tribeca before, but this is our state's biggest festival, and we finally got a chance to cover some of the films, so we're excited for that. And all the information for the film will be in the YouTube description. But just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.